Chris Godwin is officially back, but there's no timetable for when he will actually be back. The NFC South goes through a huge shakeup, and Leonard Fournette goes searching for his money in all the wrong places. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Bucs podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bucs Nation, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And we thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day. I am James Yarko, joined by Mr. David Harrison. Both of us cover your Buccaneers for SB Nation's BucsNation.com. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter at LockedOnBucs, at JYarko_Bucs, at DHarrison82, and at Bucs_Nation.
Yeah, thanks again, Bucs Nation, for making us your first view or listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. Chris Godwin officially signing his extension. The deal has been agreed to for a little while now, but officially official on Monday, extending 3 years with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that's where the good news ends, because as James mentioned in the cold open, there's no telling when we might see him on the field again, and that is coming right from Chris Godwin's mouth. So Chris Godwin and Buccaneers general manager Jason Licht held a joint press conference at the Advent Health Training Facility on Monday to discuss Godwin's new 3-year extension. When asked about how his recovery is going and when he might return, Godwin said, quote, "I'm doing really well in my recovery. I'm very pleased with this process so far. Obviously, it's a long one, so can't really project too far into the future. I just try to take it day by day, just like I have with my entire career. But I like where I am right now. I'm feeling confident about this season. I'm excited that we're getting a lot of guys back. It's a long road here, and I'm ready to be a part of the whole thing." End quote. Now, later on in the press conference, as these things tend to happen, Chris was asked essentially, not quite the same question, but a same topic, type of question about the recovery. And Chris continued by saying, quote, "I don't have a goal in mind quite yet. Thankfully, this is my only time now going through this. I'm not really sure what those kind of timelines look like. I just try to take it one day at a time. It's a long process. And I feel like when you start projecting real far into the future, it can be a bit daunting. I'm trying to keep my positivity, trying to enjoy where I'm at now and enjoy the little victories." End quote. James, I like the thought of celebrating little victories. Chris Godwin coming back on a 3-year deal is a very big victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, ACL injury or no.
Yeah, well, and as we've seen over the course of the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, maybe, ACL injuries aren't really what they used to be. So I do think that there's still a chance that Chris Godwin plays in week 1, but obviously it's not a sure thing. It's not a guarantee, and you don't want him to come back too soon, right? You don't want this to end up becoming a nagging injury that because it didn't heal properly or whatever. So let Godwin take the time that he needs and the time that he feels it takes to get his knee back to full strength. And he's got, physical therapists and the Bucs medical staff and everybody to kind of guide him in that and figuring it all out. I don't know. Maybe that means the Buccaneers could still potentially go wide receiver in round 1 of the NFL draft. They'll be like, hey, we may not have Godwin for the first couple weeks. How about Olave? Here you go, Tom Brady. But no, I love the optimism and kind of the positive mindset that Godwin comes with. And it's about enjoying the little victories, because when you try to say, by this date, I want to have this done, you can almost kind of bury yourself, right? It becomes way too much and you stress about it too much. And it's like, you know what, just tomorrow, I want to get this done. Then tomorrow, the day after that, I want to get this done. And all of a sudden it builds up and you end up doing more than if you had said 6 months from now, I want this done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, stress is a known inhibitor of human condition, right? So as your body is trying to heal or get over an illness or whatever you're dealing with, the more stressed out you are about it and about the rest of your life, the less your body is capable of fighting off what it's trying to fight off or mend what it's trying to mend. So it's a good attitude to have. And if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just like you said, the key is not rushing it before it needs to be rushed, because the key is having Chris Godwin as healthy as much as possible for the most important part of your season. And that's the postseason. That's not the regular season. Again, you have to remember, we're looking at this from a LeBron James, Cleveland Cavaliers, Los Angeles Lakers standpoint. Do you want the 1 seed? Obviously you want the 1 seed, but you know what? As long as you're in the tournament, you feel like your team has a chance to go all the way. So that's the focus. That's the number one focus. After that, everything you stack on top of that is gravy. Of course, week in, week out, Bruce Arians, Tom Brady, everybody's going to come in and say they want to win today. They want to win all the games. And that's true. But there's a difference between wanting to win every game and pushing somebody into action before they're actually ready, putting your future in jeopardy at the same time. And I can already kind of see this coming. If the schedule comes out, James, and the early going is easy, people are going to say, oh, perfect. Bring Chris back and let him ease into it. Or the other side's going to say, perfect. You don't need Chris. It's easier schedule. So go out there and go ahead and play without him. But then the other half is going to say, well, but if you lose those easier games, it's going to be in back and forth. Regardless of what happens, it's going to be a back and forth, because if the harder schedule is earlier, or one half is going to say you need Chris Godwin, push him in, and the other half is going to say no, keep him out and bring him back in when it's easier. Both answers are correct, except for the fact that it just needs to happen when Chris Godwin's body tells him it's ready to happen. So I like that the player himself is not taking no, I'm going to be back for week 1 no matter what. Nothing's stopping me. I'm getting out on the field, whether, even with fresh surgery scars, I'm getting back out on the field, because that's how you lead to career debilitating injuries. So glad to see that Chris is taking the typical Chris Godwin road, and that's the mature route about it, and patience and perseverance over pressure and pushing it. Before the weekend, speaking of people pushing things too far, we were talking about Deshaun Watson going to the NFC South because the Atlanta Falcons were just like, thanks for your 2 decades or so, or almost 2 decades of service, Matt Ryan, kick rocks. We're going to go after Deshaun Watson. But then Deshaun Watson, James, goes to the AFC North, and now Baker Mayfield is the one on his way out. Looking forward to those progressive commercials. But the NFC South still going to look a lot different because of all the drama that's been happening over the last week or so. We're going to get into that in a minute. But first, we're going to talk about the drama going on with college basketball's tournament, because it's finally here, as are your latest odds, contests, and player props. And all of those are at betonline.net, your number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2 here at the Locked On Bucs podcast. Thanks again for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or your first view of the day. Make sure you're also following Locked On NFL. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, just like this one. You can also find this one on Twitter at Locked On Bucs. You can find James and I on Twitter at JRCO_Bucs, at DHarrison82. And James, the NFC South is going through quite the shakeup, as we were talking about before the break. As Matt Ryan is out, while Jameis Winston is back, and Marcus Mariota is in, because for those of you who haven't heard yet, Matt Ryan has been traded out of the NFC South, going to the AFC South and the Indianapolis Colts in exchange for a 3rd-round pick. That writing, of course, was on the wall, and the Falcons heavily and publicly pursued Deshaun Watson, and now their quarterback of 14 years is moving on. As a result, the Falcons have signed former Tennessee Titans and Las Vegas Raiders backup quarterback Marcus Mariota to a 2-year deal worth $18.75 million. Then the other team that was an alleged finalist for Watson, the New Orleans Saints, have also agreed to a 2-year deal with the quarterback. This one, $28 million going to famous Jameis Winston. So Jameis, just like we all hoped back in 2015, we get the number 1 and number 2 draft picks head-to-head twice a year, while Tom Brady dons Buccaneers gear. That rhymed, not on purpose.
First and foremost, you just called me Jameis. So
I called you Jameis.
Yes, you called
when
me.
When did I call you Jameis?
Just now, you said, so Jameis, just like we all hoped back in 2015.
Did I?
You did.
So, James, just like we all hoped back in 2015, we get the number 1 and number 2 draft picks head-to-head twice a year. Wow, that's usually a blooper that we cut, but I think I'm going to leave that one in there. James, look. There's worse things I could call you than a Heisman Trophy winning number 1 overall draft pick of the NFL.
So yeah, the NFC South. Congratulations, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, on winning the division back-to-back seasons, because that's already done. I'm interested to see how Jameis does this year. I really truly am. I know I throw some shade his way. I don't think it's undeserved, but he was playing extremely well last year before suffering the knee injury against the Buccaneers. Granted, it seemed like Sean Payton had a little bit of a restriction plate on him as far as the way they were orchestrating the offense, but it was working. And he starts week one by absolutely beating the ever living snot out of Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. And then he turns around and he has a Winston-esque performance against the Carolina Panthers. So there was still a little bit of that Jekyll and Hyde, but I think another year in New Orleans system, he could potentially improve. He gets Michael Thomas, which is going to be a huge get for him. But now Sean Payton's gone. So let's see how this all goes. But I'll be interested to see how Winston plays in year two with New Orleans. As for Marcus Mariota, well, Atlanta, you kind of brought this on yourself. And I'm not saying that they were going to contend for the division with Matt Ryan, but what a get for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
Because Matt Ryan is leaps and bounds better than Carson Wentz. He fits exactly what Frank Reich is going to want to do in Indianapolis. He is going to be able to utilize Michael Pittman Jr. in all facets. He's going to be way better at the deep ball than Carson Wentz was, so they're going to be able to take some more shots. And I don't know, Darius Leonard was on Twitter trying to recruit Julio Jones to team back up with Matt Ryan. But the best part about all of this, David, is that Tom Brady is now the longest tenured quarterback in the NFC South.
Just continues to set milestones in the NFC South,
right?
Despite having been there since like yesterday. No, it's all, you know what? I'm really happy for Matt Ryan. I sent out a tweet when all this Deshaun Watson stuff was going on, said the Atlanta Falcons don't deserve Matt Ryan. And honestly, I'm a little disappointed in Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank has the reputation of being one of the best owners in the National Football League. I mean, things are out of his control to a certain extent because he trusts the guys in position to do the jobs that they're paid to do. But this, I kind of have a feeling this has to be one of those things. If you go to Arthur Blank and you tell him that we're going to go after Deshaun Watson, it's kind of be one of those things where you got to get him. If we're going to burn this bridge with the guy that's been leading our franchise for over a decade, you have to go get the replacement. You can't fail and fall short on this. And they did for whatever reason, whether it's money or what have you, but they fell short. They once again look like the butt of the joke as a franchise, and they're not the worst, looking franchise in the NFL, but definitely not a good look from an organizational standpoint. And how do you tell other free agents that have many options where, to come here because we're going to take care of you when they just witnessed this debacle that they witnessed here? The real question is, do the Falcons now reinvest in the quarterback position in the NFL draft? Desmond Ridder maybe as a second round pick, or do they go maybe even first round? Maybe Marcus Mariota is literally the ultimate placeholder. I don't know what they're going to do, but for the Colts, yeah, it's a win. The way I look at it, James, they basically traded Carson Wentz and got a better second. They sent away Carson Wentz, got a better second round pick, and in exchange, they get Matt Ryan. So that's basically what they did, because the third round pick that they sent is basically the third round pick they got from the Washington Commanders for Carson Wentz. And by the way, next year they have a third round pick from Washington that might become a second rounder. So in essence, you could be looking at the Indianapolis Colts taking Carson Wentz and getting a better second round pick, a better veteran quarterback, and potentially a future second round pick for Carson Wentz. So I mean, it's right out of Kevin Costner. You know what I mean? It's a great move.
What's funny is they kept the third rounder from the Washington Commanders, which was the better of the third rounders.
The better of the third rounders. Yeah. So I mean,
they sent. Oh my gosh, the Falcons! Why are you the Falcons?
I more applaud the call. I mean, because like you said, you got Michael Pittman. Maybe they do bring in Julio. That'd be a great move. And then if they want to bring in another tight end, you've got tight ends in the class. You don't have to go quarterback now if you're the Colts. Taylor. Yeah, you got Jonathan Taylor. I mean, the Colts, like honestly, right now, to me, from the way things look, it might be the Colts division to lose out there in the AFC South. The problem is they're going to have to face whoever wins the AFC West, and that's going to be a problem in and of itself. But James, speaking of other problems, the Buccaneers have some pass rush depth, right? We've got some good players: Shaq Barrett, Joe Tryon, and Shoyinka. We don't know what's going on with JPP yet, but we do know Anthony Nelson is basically all the depth you have at outside linebacker. So Manny from Atmore talking about that situation has a possible solution. So let's hear now from our guy Manny out in Atmore, Alabama.
What up, boys? This is Manny from Atmore. Just listening to the show this morning, Friday, and you guys were talking about Ndamukong Suh. I just have a question. We have Nassib that came from Vegas, and when we take it, I know that he's played his best football in Tampa. He's just considering what Ndamukong, brings to the team. Yeah, he's probably getting older, but I know he's got a year left in him. Would that be a good idea? I mean, keeping Nassib around, maybe we can even keep JPP around and just use him for tough situations, type of downs and so forth. I don't know if we can afford his contract, but that way there's no much reconstruction in our defensive linemen. Twinga is just a rising star, so he definitely belongs there. But just not sure if we could afford, keeping Nassib around, letting Ndamukong and Vita Vea just be the stronghold points in the middle of the defense for that run defense. And then, it's just bringing Nassib when necessary, since we already have him. And we might be able to keep him with, for pretty cheap, a guy that's had some experience rather than replacing him with somebody new, somebody coming up. I don't know. I just thought maybe that will free up cap space in a different department, like for a running back or something like that. Just your thoughts on that. But really excited, man. I can't believe he's back. I'll be honest with you, to get that close to winning last year with, I don't know, half of his offense pretty much sitting on the sidelines hurt. I'm pretty sure he couldn't sleep knowing, man, I got this far with, missing this many people. And then just being a defense coverage play that didn't get us to the NFC Championship game. I think all of those things play a role in his decision. Either way, I'm back. We're back. He's back. Everybody's back. Buck Nations is back, baby. Let's get it. Fire the cannons. God bless, boys.
All right, Manny, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. And, David, he's definitely not wrong. Carl Nassib had his best years in Tampa. Now, one was under the Dirk Cutter regime. 1 year was under the Bruce Arians regime. But in those 2 years in Tampa, he had more sacks than his other 4 years in the NFL combined.
Yeah, 22 total NFL career sacks, 12 and a half of those with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
So
here's the problem. I don't think Carl Nassib comes back, and it's because they don't really have a spot for him. And the reason I say that is because Nassib and Anthony Nelson are essentially the same player. Yeah. So Carl Nassib doesn't really bring anything to your team that you don't already have. Now, yeah, you still have a spot that needs to be filled by Jason Pierre-Paul. Maybe they do bring him back. I know the Dallas Cowboys are interested in JPP services. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you could potentially bring him back, but now you're basically looking at your starters as being Barrett and Tryon Shoyinka. You could draft another edge rusher. The kid from Michigan, David, help me out.
David Ojabo.
That's the one. Yeah. Could he drop all the way to the Bucs now with that torn Achilles? Because he's going to miss a ton of time. Yeah. And the teams that are drafted high in that first round, can they afford to draft someone that they don't get to use right away?
Right.
Maybe not. So you could be looking at arguably one of the best, if not the best pass rusher in the draft, dropping all the way to you at 27. Maybe you got to trade up a couple of spots, but boom, there's your JPP replacement. And now you have a trio of highly feared pass rushers. Once, is it Ojabo? I never know how to pronounce it.
David Ojabo from Michigan. Yeah.
Thank you.
Heart breaks for that kid, first of all. Yes. Injuring himself in his pro day. It's really tough. I like Carl Nassib. I would love to see Carl Nassib back with the Buccaneers. It makes a lot of sense for everything that Manny talked about. We could use some pass rush depth. Carl Nassib had his best years in Tampa, like we've just chronicled. I agree with you though. I think one, if JPP comes back, it's null and void. You're going young. If JPP doesn't come back, I still feel like if you're the Buccaneers, you wait till after the draft. You know what I mean? I think you don't rush to fill that spot with a veteran until you have to, because you have your starters. You have Anthony Nelson. I like Carl Nassib as an Anthony Nelson comp, but I think what the difference is for me, Carl Nassib has proven that he can do it. And again, like you said, he's proven he can do it with his hand in the dirt under Mike Smith, and he's proven he can do it standing up under Todd Bowles. So that versatility is important. I think the maturity, the leadership inside the locker room is valuable. I just don't think you do it till after the draft. You see how the trap matriculates. Then if you still need to add to your pass rush arsenal, you go to Carl. Plus, Carl's probably going to be looking for a place he can go where he gets a fighting chance at a starting job. It's not happening in Tampa.
No, I don't think it is either. And something else that might not be happening in Tampa is the return of Leonard Fournette. The Bucs might have some competition for him from an all too familiar team. But first, this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it is now possible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. And why do you want to endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the brands that their warehouse carries? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? Don't do that. RockAuto.com is a family business serving auto parts customers online for 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything that you can need, between brake parts and tail lamps to motor oil, even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Wrapping things up here on a Tuesday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. James Yarko, David Harrison on Twitter at JYarko_Bucs, at DHarrison82. David, we have breaking news as we're recording the podcast.
That I accidentally hit the wrong button while you were doing your ad read?
No, but that was an experience. Jamison Crowder.
Yes.
To the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
I like that fit.
Just like we predicted.
Also, shout out Ross Jackson, host of Locked On Saints. He is very upset about that move. He wanted Crowder in New Orleans. That didn't happen. Crowder went to a team that everybody can love, because the Buffalo Bills are a lovable team and not a bunch of poopy heads like the New Orleans Saints. But we need to talk about the Buccaneers and the fact that maybe Leonard Fournette won't be quite as easy to bring back as many of us thought. David, we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about what Leonard Fournette said on Twitter, the money that he was looking for, and comparing that to the money that some of these other running backs are getting. Well, according to Field Yates of ESPN, Leonard Fournette was visiting the New England Patriots as he continues to look for his payday, after tweeting about waiting patiently and knowing what he wanted and being a top 5 back and all of those things. So Fournette to the Patriots?
I mean, I don't like it, and I don't think it's a good decision for Lenny. Like, I mean, I guess if Leonard Fournette's going out there trying to prove that he can be a running back that carries the squad, New England might be a place and go do it. Mac Jones did well in his rookie season, but I think everybody agrees that he needs more weapons around him. So if Leonard Fournette goes there and they suddenly compete for the division or make the playoffs or what have you, then he'll get some of that credit that maybe he's trying to earn. I don't know. It's hard to gauge what a person values from the inside when you're not that person and you're not like working with them every single day. I mean, I'll never tell somebody that if you feel like you're not appreciated where you are, to not go look for other opportunities. But from the outside looking in, I think Leonard Fournette may be chasing his pride a little bit more and leaving success behind in the pursuit of it. He might get more money in New England, but again, you look at the juggernaut that is the AFC West. You now look at what the Indianapolis Colts are potentially putting together, the Buffalo Bills in your own division. I mean, even with Leonard Fournette, the New England Patriots are maybe the 7th or 8th best team in the AFC, like on paper. I mean, Again, crazy things happen, but it just kind of is what it is. Coming to the NFC, you have a chance for more continued success. To me, it's just a smarter decision from a holistic standpoint. Maybe a little bit less money, but more success, which then births other success. But I mean, it's Lenny's decision to make. I don't know what he's exactly chasing. It seems like it either seems more like a flex move to maybe inspire the Buccaneers to come loose with a little bit more money, or kind of a flex move of, well, I'll show them what they're missing by going to a reverse Tom Brady type of situation. And I almost wonder, and this is reading way too much into it, I'm going to admit that right up front, I almost wonder if Leonard Fournette is not going to sign with the Buccaneers just out of principle.
I'm not sure if it'll go quite that far.
I hope not. I hope not. That's just kind of where my inquisitive mind goes. But I do want to make sure we're clear. Nothing that's happening is telling me that. It's just my overactive mind that James deals with on a daily basis that's taking me to that location.
Look, if Leonard Fournette is looking for top 10 running back money, which he's not going to get from anyone, but he's especially not getting it from the New England Patriots. And outside of last year's wild spending spree that they went on, Bill Belichick is one of the most frugal, coaches / GMs in the league when it comes to shelling out money for free agents. He always looks for the discount guys, and they always pan out every time. So if he thinks he's going to be getting, over $8 million a year to top Saquon Barkley and join the Patriots, he's not getting it.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you take a look at the two situations, and David, you brought it up perfectly. The Patriots being in the AFC, that is a daunting task to get through the AFC. NFC, not so much. It's a 2-team race. It's
out of nowhere too, man. The AFC was. Yeah. I used to call it the Eastern Conference of the NFL, and all of a sudden now it's completely on its head. It's amazing what happens.
Yeah. So you have an opportunity to return to a Buccaneers team where you are the guy. If you go to New England, you have James White, Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris, Ty Montgomery, JJ Taylor, Devine Ozigbo. You're the 7th running back, dude. In Tampa, you have the GOAT. You have Evans and Godwin. Now you got Russell Gage. You're going to get Gronk back. And your running back competition is Keyshawn Vaughn. Dude, you're getting 85% of the touches.
Yeah. I think the problem is he doesn't feel like he's being paid enough to take 85% of the touches.
Well, if you take 85% of the touches, you might crack that top 10 based on what you can do, because right now you're putting up Cordarrelle Patterson stats. You're going to get Cordarrelle Patterson money no matter where you go. And that's ultimately what it boils down to. David, real quick before we get out of here, we do have one more voicemail that we need to get to from Emmett in Plymouth.
Hey, this is Emmett calling from Plymouth, Mass. I had a question. I remember hearing about the Buccaneers going to, was it Munich, Germany? And I was wondering, if Tom Brady's back, does that mean he's going to play there, or did that already happen, or when is that going to happen? Where are they going to play in Germany, and when can we watch it? And if he is there, will Tom Brady be playing? Love to hear what you all have to say about that.
Emmett, thank you very much for the call. Yes, the Buccaneers will have a 2022 game over in Munich, Germany. We do not know the date. We do not know the opponent. That'll be unveiled when the NFL releases its schedule. The rumor is their opponent will be the Kansas City Chiefs at a Super Bowl 55 rematch, which just got way more interesting than when this game was announced a few weeks ago, because it was going to be Patrick Mahomes against Kyle Trask maybe, but now it's Brady Mahomes Super Bowl rematch, first NFL regular season game in Germany. We just don't have a specific date yet. We won't know until the NFL releases its schedule.
I have a question for you.
Okay, fire away.
The Washington Commanders reportedly entertained or possibly entered into some sort of preliminary discussions to potentially bring Andrew Luck out of retirement. Does this interest you from a Buccaneers standpoint for 2023 and beyond if Tom Brady does in fact retire? Or 2023 and beyond.
You mean would I want the Buccaneers to try to lure Andrew Luck out of retirement?
Yeah.
No. I love Andrew Luck. I do. But having seen him on TV, that dude is not, he is not
It didn't look like he was at all entertaining coming back.
No.
That's what, and that's what the reports, they're so vague. Like, if Andrew Luck took their phone call, then that tells me that there actually is a crack in a window that he might climb through to come back to the NFL. But if it was just internal conversations within Washington of maybe let's call Andrew Luck, then it probably means nothing.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck would answer that phone call because Andrew Luck might be the nicest human being walking the planet. So he would take the phone call, and I'm assuming it would be Ron Rivera on the other line, and he'd be like, "No, Ron, I'm not interested in playing, but tell me, how are you? How's your wife? How are your kids?"
He would. I can see him saying that exact thing. All right, good answer.
Send me videos of what your grandkids are doing. And hey, I would love to treat you to lunch a week from Thursday. Meet me. Yeah, that's Andrew Luck. So yeah, it'd be cool, but I don't think Andrew Luck has it. I think he's done with that part of his life, and I think he's happier for it. So with that,
100%.
David, we are out of here. We would like to thank all of you once again for making Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or view of the day. Now make your second listen, the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football as well as the NFL front offices. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I will be back tomorrow with Evan Klosky of 10 Tampa Bay. We're going to have plenty more to talk about then. But if you have a question for Evan and myself, go ahead and shoot us a phone call at 813-444-5841 or send us an email to lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com. For David Harrison, I am James Yarko. And until we speak again, make sure you are checking out everything going on over at bucksnation.com. Follow along on Twitter at LockedOnBucks, at JYarko_Bucks, at DHarrison82, and at Bucks_Nation. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, be good to one another, fire those cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.